Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today I'm going to be using one of my sets, which is Nancy's Lilac Bouquet, and then also this birthday sentiment set. Celebrating You, I think, maybe. I'll link it below. So this, have you ever just have a cut, like they just went completely off the rails, like totally sideways than what you had originally intended? That's what happened here. So this is watercolor paper. My preferred is Canson Monteval cold press paper. So that's what this is. And I always end up with kind of like these weird different sizes because I do buy mine in the larger pad since it's cheaper. So here I'm basically just going to heat emboss as many of these as I can because my original intention was to make a frame. So I have treated it with my anti-static tool, and now I am inking up the main image with the Brilliant White pigment ink. I'm going to stamp that down 2 times, and then I will sprinkle on some white detail embossing powder, and then heat set that. And then I'm going to do this several more times. Now, when I do the next ones, I positioned my stamp purposely in my MISTI so that I would just be able to kind of turn the paper and everything would still fit, which I was just off by just a little bit. So there was kind of like a little bit of overlapping, but that's okay. At the end of the day, you're not really going to be able to tell that that even happened. So I'm not stressing over it. I just wanted a bunch of images that were white heat embossed on my watercolor paper so that I could watercolor over them, and then kind of build myself a little frame for my card. So the other, I'm going to stamp this 4 times, but the other 2 are very clearly going to be hanging over the edges. And because I was looking to build that frame, I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried that they're only partials of the image. They don't need to be full. Like I don't need the image in its entirety. There's actually only one that I stamped completely in its entirety, and it was the first one you watched me stamp. So here, I'm not going to talk too much about the watercolors, just because I'm still kind of playing around with them. So I don't want to give an opinion before I'm sure. But basically, these are, they're watercolor confections. They're 12 color pan sets that are meant for kind of like travel watercolor on the go. And these are from Prima. They are carried in the Honeybee store. The one that I ended up going with for this one is called Tropical. And it has 12 colors in it. I also have the classic and the one, it's called Odyssey, which lends maybe a bit more towards like fall or jewel tones. So I'm kind of messing around with those and seeing if I like them. Here, this is definitely sped up. Like I said, my original intention was to do the watercolor and then die cut them out, build up a frame, and then pop them over this other piece that you see me doing here. So I'm kind of adding the colors to both of them in the same way. And I'm not paying too much attention to like if I'm putting pink on the leaves, like I'm just letting it do its thing. One of the ways that I find if I'm having trouble with where the colors are going and I'm maybe creating too much of a pattern because I want to keep that control, one of the ways that I can kind of break that up is by doing what you just saw me do there and just adding spatters. And then I will continuously be adding more water with a spray bottle just to get the pigments to move. There is no rhyme or reason here, but also I'm going to be very transparent when I tell you that in the end result, I don't even think this matters. I don't even think I needed to do this because I end up not being thrilled with the amount of dimension that I'm getting. And so I change mediums anyhow. But I like to be very transparent with you guys and kind of show you what I've done to get to where I got. So I chose to include this in the video anyway. This was also kind of a test I was doing to see how well they picked up. Like meaning when I put a dry paper towel over top of them, how much they stained the paper. And I'm going to tell you, they pick up pretty nicely. You're going to see that here in a second, and then I will speed up even more for when I do it the next time because basically I'm going to pick up all this color, and it's going to be really, really pale background, which if that was the look that you're going for, I think is pretty nice. I like that it picks up so cleanly, but not necessarily what I was going for here. So a lot of times, when you are like leaving questions on the YouTube videos and stuff, for those of us who do this, and this is like our career, this is how we make our living, you guys ask a lot of questions that sometimes we don't know the answer to. And so I have to do experiments. So I will be able to answer, like, does this pick up as well as, a comparable watercolor? This whole left piece, though, for real, I didn't even use it. I'm just being transparent. Sometimes you do experiments and it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. The ones on the right, though, that we did heat emboss, I will be using that one. That one will actually make its way onto the card. So yeah, anywho, this card, the intention with these cards was to create my mom's birthday card. Here I'm just, lifting it up and moving it around so that way I can kind of break up a little bit of that stripy pattern that I had going on there. Again, totally doesn't matter because I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to use it at all for this card. So anywho, once I got this to the point where I was like happy with how things were looking on the piece I'm actually going to use, then I went back in and tried to add, well, I didn't try to, I actually did add darker pigment and more color. And this time specific to the image that I was trying to paint. So green on the leaves, purple on the purple, blues, pinks on the lilacs, and then the roses. But this is still sopping wet from the background that we just did. So that's why you don't see me adding any other water. I'm using the water that we put on the background. And because we have the white heat embossing, they kind of act as dams, so that we could get like a little well of pigment in there. But you can see in some of the areas where maybe I had too much water on my brush that it does kind of start to bleed out into the background. That didn't bother me at all. But if it bothers you, you may want to dry this before you go in and try to add any deeper, darker watercoloring over top of it. I just am very impatient when it comes to watercoloring, and especially when I'm doing something like this where I know only a portion of the whole image is going to be seen, or at least I thought only a portion of the whole image would be seen. I was not trying to be like too controlling about kind of where the pigment went. Like I said, at the end of the day, by the time that they were all dried down, I did not love the look of the dimension. And this is my own, I guess it's a weakness, I don't know, that I get impatient, and I think it happens to all of us. Like, we get impatient with achieving the look that we want to do. And so rather than sitting here and forcing myself to practice with a medium that I am not quite as comfortable with, i.e. watercoloring, I default back to one I am more comfortable with, which is my alcohol markers. I try to be better about this, but you can see here, like, this is dry and it's just not giving a ton of dimension, and I don't love that. So something to note, you could absolutely go in here with colored pencils and get more dimension. You could go in again with another layer of watercolor if you were a more patient person, or maybe somebody who just enjoyed the process more. I'm not really sure. Or you can do what I'm doing and you can use alcohol markers. You could also use water-based markers. You could watercolor with those as well. And maybe that, now that I think of it, maybe that would have been a good way to get like a really strong pigment into those areas. But anywho, I didn't. I went with alcohol markers because that's what I'm comfortable with. So here, I will, just something of note, that when you're coloring with your alcohol markers over a heat embossed image, if you take your marker over that heat embossing, it will color it. Alcohol markers pretty much color anything. So you want to make sure that you're trying to keep it in the lines. If you do get, your marker, which I do, I'm not going to pretend like I don't, on that white heat embossing, you can go in with a colorless blender and you just swipe it over top. You don't want to scrub it because you don't want to ruin the heat embossing. You just want to swipe it over top and then scribble it off on a scrap piece of paper. So for the flowers, for the roses, I ended up going with, kind of like a more magenta-y type color. And then for the lilacs, I'm going in with blue violets, but then I will do a little bit of color glazing with blues and some of those magenta pink tones that we used in the rose. And just because I like a lot of color variation. Not everybody does, and if you don't, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with the blue-violet combination. So when I say, like, this whole thing went off the rails, I feel like, and maybe I'm not the only one. Do you ever feel like sometimes you're just caught in a cycle where you just can never catch up with the thing that you're trying to accomplish? Because that is how I feel. Like, I have several videos that are cards that I have finished that need to be posted. Like, they're edited and they just need voiced over and they need to be posted, but it's not quite the one that was due. And so, like, I'm just playing catch up. I just feel like the last 2 weeks of my life, I've just been completely playing catch up. And then tomorrow, if you follow me, you probably know that I met my husband at my previous job. He still works there. I no longer work there. But I worked there for almost 20 years. So I know a lot of the same people that he works. In fact, I've probably known them longer than he does. But so there's a retirement luncheon tomorrow. And like, I really would like to go so that I can not just wish the retiree best of luck in their next adventure. Because I've known her, since I was 20 years old, if you don't know, was a far cry away from where we're at right now. But I have these looming deadlines. So it's like, do I take even if I go for only like an hour, I still have an hour of drive time. So it's like, do I take the 2 hours out of my day and go see her, to say congratulations? Or do I try to get myself back on track with what I know that I need to accomplish? And here's the thing, like, there's no, nobody's gonna be like, oh, you didn't meet your deadline. I'm my own boss. I work for myself. But I just know that these are things that I need to accomplish that are on like my checklist of things that I need to do. And so sometimes I just feel like I'm totally playing catch up. So yeah. Keep me in your prayers. I need help. I need help with my scheduling. Because even as I do this, like this video, even though I had planned for it to go up today and it was already previously edited, I'm still doing the voiceover late, which means the video is going to be up late. So you're probably going to watch us at if you catch it right as it goes up, it'll be like 9 p.m. I don't know who's watching YouTube videos at 9 p.m. on a Thursday, but if you are, God bless you, because I need you. I need you in my life. So here, this is all of the coloring done. There is that other piece that I'm not even going to end up using, but again, the game plan was use the die, cut them all out, build the frame around this kind of lighter this washy watercolor background. And I did do that. I cut them all out, I laid them out, and I didn't love it. So, we got to pivot. If you don't love it, it's okay. You just gotta embrace the change. So here, you can see the one in the bottom corner, which is what is it? Lapis, I think, maybe it's periwinkle. I'm not positive. It's from Hero Arts, but I love that color. But it just wasn't enough of a contrast. So of course I've pulled out navy because blue is my boyfriend and I love all things navy. But also one of these cards, I didn't intend for there to be two, but now there is, will be for my mom's birthday. And she also loves blue. So now that I've switched over to the navy, I don't want to be able to see that outline from the dye. I do not love that. So in order to fix that, I'm going to color that in with a navy alcohol marker. For me, in my, what is this? For me in my Nautical, it's from Hero Arts, Nautical. That is my favorite navy. I hope they don't get rid of it. I'll cry. But anyway, so I used a B99 and went around the edges. So now I know that there's going to be a clean and simple version, just because I messed around with it quite a bit. And so the other one is going to be a little bit more clean and layered. I like both of them, but I am a girly who's drawn to like clean and simple. I'd love to know what your style is, and which one you prefer, because I think they're both pretty. I'm just more drawn to the cleaner look. So for this one, I've already trimmed down this piece of navy, and I am using the Vintage Flora, I think is what it's called. It'll be linked below. I've treated with my anti-static tool, and now I am going to heat emboss this. We're just going to be layering lots of textures together. That's just going to add a lot more interest to our card. And so because I want to add interest, but I don't want to compete with my focal points, I'm using a clear embossing powder. So I stamped it in clear ink, and then you could leave it just dry that way if you didn't want it to be shiny or raised. You would still get that watermark look where it would be slightly darker. But I decided to go ahead and add the clear embossing, just because I think it adds another like raised texture that you can feel. And again, we're looking to build interest without necessarily building a ton of bulk. And then I'm also going to use the scallop from the... Why don't I know the name of this? Guys, what's wrong with me today? I don't know. Maybe it's all that ketchup I've been playing. Well, I shouldn't even say that, because the other day, I was telling my husband, I was like, I'm losing my mind. I was feeding the dogs, and I put the food in their water, like in the side that they normally have their water. And he's like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I honestly have no idea. But anywho, so for the sentiments, originally I was just going to use that one that I think it's the Celebrating You set, that I showed you, and the same thing, white heat embossing in the using the pigment ink and then the white detail embossing powder, and then cutting them out with their coordinating dies. I didn't actually end up loving this for the layered one, so I am going to change it. And this is how another way that I get backed up, because I could have totally been working on another project, but I didn't love it. And so I had to go back. I had to. And this is why my husband says I'm a perfectionist, but I'm not a perfectionist, because the card is still not perfect. No card is perfect. But it's better. Like, I am just a person that when I recognize I could do better than what I've done, I am helpless not to try to rectify it. So here, the one on the left is going to be our clean and simple one. This one on the right is going to be the layered. And ironically, you probably won't even be able to see most of this flower, this large, this large one when I get done. You really only see kind of like the lilacs and just like little peaks of the pink roses, but that's okay. It's all right. So here, this, like I said, it is trimmed down, and it's going to sit on the inside of that scallop. And I am just lining these up so that you can just see like little peaks of the blue in between. So not exactly creating the frame like I had intended, but still creating a nice like focal backdrop for my sentiment. And then I'm just going to trim these off. Does it make me a little sad to cut off those little bits that I spent a lot of time first painting for no reason and then coloring a little bit? But here, like, see, I'm going to go back in and use this little leaf just to fill in this corner. I can't use any of the other stuff though, because it has flat edges. So I can only use the part that has the little leaf that is sticking out. And that's okay. It's going to fill it in enough. So then I pulled out the heart, which is the next layer from the scallop. And you can see here on the right, like I've got cut out of vellum, and then I cut the smaller heart out of white and then put the happy birthday on. This is the one that I don't love, and I'm not gonna I'm not gonna leave it like that. So there was really no point in showing you how it all came together. For this one, the Clean and Simple one, which honestly I think is the one I will probably end up, maybe I'll give both of them to my mom. Maybe one will be from the kids and one will be for me. But anyway, so here I'm gluing the sentiment to the florals because I know that I want to pop it up. I know I don't have a ton of interest going on here. I basically have a white mat with a plain navy blue background. But to me, that is what is so appealing. There's no competition for this little floral bouquet. It stands up there. It's nice and clean. We have a super pretty white font. This just really speaks to me. I prefer this style, but that doesn't mean that I can't appreciate this other style, and all the different elements that are going on and how each layer is adding more texture and more interest to this particular card. So I am going to glue them down flat for the most part. Originally, when I put the card together, I did pop up the sentiment by just putting some foam underneath the white heart. Obviously, I didn't want to put it underneath the vellum because I didn't want it to be visible. But then I will rip that off of my I will shamelessly rip that off of my card in order to be able to fix it with a different sentiment. I'm not 100%. I think it's better, but I'm not 100% sold on loving the card like I am the one on the left. I really am very interested to hear what your guys' feedback is about this, just because obviously, we all have different styles. So here I am using some clear, this is a clear glitter marker. This one might be from scrapbook.com. And I am just going over the florals to add some glitter. This can, depending upon your watercolor, kind of pick up some color and move it around because you're adding moisture. Just be aware of that. If you did what I did and watercolored a portion of it. And then I am going to add some gemstones. Weirdly, both of the gemstone colors that I picked were actually from the Sweet and Spooky rhinestone set. So even though it was for like Halloween, don't discount it. It's got great colors. So here is how they were done, and now we're going to go back in and just rip this one apart because I don't love it. So I'm going to use the big happy birthday, which you may have just seen me recently use for my husband's birthday card, and so I'm going to cut the background out of vellum, and then I am going to cut the happy birthday. I did it a couple of times out of white, and then I also cut it out of like a plum and a blue violet-ish color because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So here I'm trying to go in and rip it off as gently as possible with the hope of not just completely destroying the flowers underneath. I was pretty successful except for directly in the middle, and you'll be able to see that once I get this peeled up. There is a spot that was directly in the middle that is missing. There it is. But fortunately for me, you're not going to be able to see it because this other sentiment will go right over top of it. And pretty much the R blocks that out. So I did it with white at first, and I did not necessarily love it with just the white. So then this is when I made the decision to bring in the other colors. So here's the plum color, which matches the roses. And then, like I said, I also cut it out of this like purpley violet color. In addition to that, I also pulled out the mini messages and their coordinating dies and white heat embossed the Make-A-Wish on navy, so that I could add a little something else extra. So I'm just going to show you here. This is with the plum color, which I didn't think was bad, but I wasn't 100% in love with. And then this is the blue violet color, and I much preferred this one. So I am going to, just to give it some weight, and also it gives this, it gives this nice little white accent, like when you look at it from the side. So I'm going to stack a bunch of these together with the, well, it's 2 pieces. It's obviously both says happy birthday, but it is 2 pieces. So I think I did 3 whites and then the color on top from there, and I just stacked them up. The other thing, in my desperate desire to like try to play catch up with my schedule of my life, this is the first video I ever like edited at like a increased speed. Typically I edit them at a regular speed just to make sure that I don't miss anything. But because I was so just desperately trying to get this up, and the day that I had intended, I edited this video at like 400 times the regular speed. And I don't want to jinx myself because we're almost done here, but I am pleasantly surprised at how well the editing worked out. And that we, didn't have a bunch of wasted time in between. It was definitely a faster way to edit, and apparently I need to incorporate this into my regular doing because it will probably be very helpful to me. So here, just finishing off, stacking all of those up, and then I glued them to the vellum, and then when I glued them to the card, I only put the adhesive behind the words. I also just glued the Make-A-Wish right over top because there was enough letters for it to be sturdy. I didn't need to add any foam tape underneath it. I am cheap, so I'm not wasting those rhinestones. I went back to the one that I pulled them off of and put them onto the new card, and then here are both cards. So please let me know which one you prefer. I'd be very interested to see. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.